Hey everyone, it's Natalie Marie Collins. Welcome to this podcast episode of Activating Magic. I'm so excited for you to be here, and I'm really excited to introduce our guest. This is this is Sara Speicher, and I hope I said that right.
Close enough.
Okay. It's from your husband.
Exactly.
We'll blame it on him. And Sara and I worked together a while back. She was a client of mine, and she has this really amazing story that since we've worked together, her business has evolved in such a cool and dramatic way that I couldn't help but bring her on so we can share this with you. Now, a little bit of background about Sara. I will be pulling up her human design chart as we go along with things because that's what I do. And Sara is a Sacral Authority generator. She's very open. She only has 3 defined centers. And I want you to hear from her experience what it's like to be a Sacral Authority generator and someone who's living with their authority and has it activated in their system and is following it, and what that looks like from her perspective. So welcome, Sara. I'm so excited for you to be on here today.
And I couldn't be happier to be here with you. I mean, we're going to break the internet. You can feel it.
Yes. So, Sara, you've evolved so much. When we worked together, you were doing a lot of strategy and business building for people, and so much of the strategy side of things and helping people build their systems up in their business. How did your business look then? Like, how did it look then? And let's start talking about what it looks like now. What do you actually do now?
Oh my goodness. Like I said, how many days do we have? Yes, the change has been tremendous. And this is a beautiful part about us evolving as entrepreneurs, and frustrating part, because just as something becomes familiar and it starts working, you're like, but I don't feel it anymore. I feel pulled to keep moving forward. And it's frustrating to our spouses, who are like,
I remember that with you.
Here we go again. No, but back then, yes, when we met, I actually started out as a virtual assistant in 2011. And it was a combination of many different things, including the fact that I lost my job the same week I found out I was pregnant. My whole family is overseas, so I figured, oh, great, as an entrepreneur, I will have all the time and all the freedom and all the money to do whatever I wanted. And then I realized I was still trading dollars for hours, and I was niching myself, in the box that was known to me. And when my clients would come to me who were much more woke at the time than I was, and it's like, yeah, this launch will not work because the moon is in this cycle. And it was like, oh, what? I'm out, what?
Like, what does that have anything to do with it?
It's going to be the order of things, and we're going to do it. But through the years, also becoming a mom to a crystal child, who's a master manifester herself, I had to learn different ways of being and different ways of parenting and different ways of being an entrepreneur in order to continuously serve. And one thing led to another, that I outgrew the online business management agency that I put together. I started dipping my toes into consulting and coaching, and still sticking to that strategic aspect of it. While on the back burner, I was kind of swinging back and forth from the, very logical and structured to the woo side of things. And I don't like to say the word woo because it gets misinterpreted so many times, but there's pure magic that happens on that side. And then finding this balance between the two. And my business has taken off since then. I took a couple of major leaps that we'll be talking about today. And ultimately, it helped me really design the business that even past clients would reach out and it's like, oh my gosh, I can feel your heart now. And I get goosebumps.
Isn't it wonderful when they can actually feel you, like the real you?
Yeah. But, to actually answer your question, how it felt to have that business at the time, that was my truth, and as always, I like to believe that we all do the best that we know how to do.
Mhm.
And that was the best that I knew back then. And as I evolved, I learned new things, my horizons opened, I experienced different things, and the layers keep peeling off, and you can go deeper and you come closer to the truth that actually is yours and not somebody else's shoulds and expectations and demands and goals and so on.
Yeah. So I love this. And when we first met, so a little side note, Sacral Authority generators are my favorite. It's so like your inner authority, once your brain gets out of the way, it's so easy to follow it.
Yeah.
It's just that getting the brain out of the way part that
Oh, yeah.
becomes tricky. So with your inner authority, if, for those of you that don't know, generators who have sacral authority, it's all about or and it's all about following that and knowing and trusting that when you say and it feels good in your gut, that's what you're supposed to follow. And your brain will totally trip out because it's like, that's not the logical explanation of what needs to happen and what you need to follow. And that's not rational or anything. Like, so the brain will trip us up. And that's exactly what happened with you when we started working together and we drilled down to this place of this that totally freaked you out.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that?
I was like, nope, not doing that. I can't. I shouldn't.
You shouldn't. Like, husband's not going to stand it. Like, it's not going to happen. Do you want to tell us what that is, or would you like me to?
Oh, I can tell it.
Okay.
It was taking my girls out of school and packing our bags and going to Europe for 4 months. That's a little backstory, how that all came to be. As I mentioned earlier, my family is overseas. I came here 15 years ago to play basketball. My intention was to stay for 4 years and go back. My heart got stuck, so here we are.
And your heart got stuck because you met your husband?
Yes.
Yeah,
Who
okay.
I was not supposed to meet, actually.
Oh.
We Through my teammate, I got familiar with Match.com. And I was like, there's no freaking way a computer can match you up with somebody, and I'm going to prove it to you. So I signed up, created my profile. Those are some of the hardest questions I was ever asked. It's like, I don't know that about myself. Don't make me think about those things. Well, within a few hours, I got an email, potential match. And it was this handsome guy. And I was like, oh, all right, he looks fine. Let me read his description. Okay. Okay, fine, I'll respond. We were chatting back and forth for about a week, went on a date the week later, met on Times Square. I was like, I'm meeting you in Times Square because now I know cops are there, taxis are there, just in case I had to run. That was it.
It was love at first sight?
Pretty much, very close.
Okay.
But it was not one of those, we were talking about yay or nay. It was not one of those, oh, I have butterflies, I can't sleep, I can't stop thinking about him. It felt like my soul came home. So to forward to our conversation when we were working together, my girls at the time loved the movie Moana. And there's something about that movie that really resonates with me, the exploring, being the first, breaking the barriers. And there's a scene when her grandmother passes away and her spirit in the form of a manta ray now goes under her boat as Moana sets out to find Maui, for those who may not have seen the movie before. That is the scene that breaks me every single time. I mean, I can't escape watching it without going through a box of tissues. And the girls, they would now turn and I was like, Mommy, please don't cry. I was like, crying, I'm not crying. But there was something about that particular day in June of 2017 that I was like, I need to do this. And I went online and I looked for places for rent and houses for sale in my hometown. because we are now here in New York. You know, we have a beautiful home, we have a beautiful backyard. The girls love it. My husband works in New York City. We go to New York City whenever we want to. It's like the best of both places. But at the time, I was like, I felt this need that we needed to go. And I presented this idea to him, and he was all for it. And then he got a promotion, and he was not for it anymore. And it felt, you know, the feeling is like it, as somebody closed the gate and threw the key away, and you can see the world on the outside. It's waiting for you, but you can't get to it. So yeah, that's when things start to unroll into one of the greatest adventures thus far.
Mm. So that I remember that so specifically because it was a bit shocking for you to realize that you were homesick.
Yeah.
And you really wanted to go back home. And at first you wanted to move there permanently. And then it became, wait, I really just need to go back there for a length of time to visit. And it became, was it 4 months or 5 months?
It was 4 months.
Okay, 4 months.
It was interesting, but when we were talking, 1 week we were talking about moving, and then the second week he's like, no, we're not going. And then the week after, well, if you want to go, you can go for 2 weeks. I was like, whoa, forever? 2 weeks? There's got to be a way in between. And it was such a shock for me, and it was also a shock for him, to the point that for a couple of months we were literally walking on eggshells. It was such a sensitive topic. For some reason, I mean, I can say what my perception was. I can't speak for him, but it felt as if it was an attack on him personally, in a way that all the defenses came up at the moment. It was really hard to have those conversations, and it pushed me to the point I had to really start digging deeper and uncovering where my reservations coming from. And it was a lot of, as we were talking, the logic. You can't. No one does that. I mean, who takes the girls and leaves the husband and goes? You know, and above it all, it was like, can you even do it? Are you worthy of it? You know, because my business was going through this transition when everything that I knew, I kind of pushed aside, not knowing what the future of the business would look like. I was like, well, what do you mean now you want to add another layer of the mystery on top of it? You know, can't you just, you know, it was really a lot of this push and pull. And then February 15th, actually, 2018, we boarded the airplane. And 4 months later, when it was time to come back, the girls did not want to come back. They wanted to stay overseas.
And home for you is in Slovenia.
Yes.
And which is, you've posted pictures of Slovenia, and it is this gorgeous, picturesque European country in the mountains. Is it the Alps? Is it in the Alps?
It's actually, I have a catalog here because that became a part of the one of the services, and I'm gonna just piggyback on that. That's
it's so pretty there.
It's literally pretty much what the view from our kitchen window was when I was growing up.
Wow.
The castle where my husband and I also got married is that castle.
Oh.
And then this, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of nature, 1,000-year-old buildings, a lot of history there, very grounded, much slower lifestyle, much more outdoorsy lifestyle.
Especially compared to New York.
Like a day and night. And what I use the most, and I still do, I have to be honest, is over there, you know, you're in a neighborhood and you're like, oh, let me go ring a doorbell and see if this person's home. Or let me call somebody if they're free. Let's go grab a cup of coffee. And you sit outside. Coffee places have, if they have space, they have playgrounds around so the kids can play while the parents enjoy their drinks and conversations. Here, I'm like, okay, we can schedule something 4 months in advance, and I will have 45 minutes. I was like, oh. So that was one of the things that I really missed. And it's like the girls needed to experience the culture. They needed to experience the lifestyle. And they were in kindergarten and daycare at the time. but I could still see the differences. For example, my nephews overseas, their kindergarten would have their own garden, and they would go hiking, they would go in theater, they would go to farms, they would take walks every day, rain or snow, didn't matter. Our girls, it was a little bit windy, they were inside all day long. I was like, what? It's like they need to experience more than what they get here, and it's my responsibility as a parent to do that while I heal myself.
Yeah. So you took them over there for 4 months and they didn't want to come back. And
Yep.
so you spent a summertime over there, right?
We actually arrived in February, and it
Oh, in
was
February. Okay.
after snowstorm, so there was a ton of snow. We were sledding, we were skiing. I was back on skis after like, I don't know, 8 years or so, 10 years, even more. And my daughter was on her skis for the first time, so we went on top of the skiing slope, and I was holding her as we went down. I forgot all the muscles that I had as we're going down, and she goes, "Mommy, you can do it." It's like, sure, we need to take a break. My back hurts. It's like, Mommy, you can do it. And then when the snow started to thaw, you know, all the wildflowers came out, and we stayed. The last week, actually, we spent a weekend on my sister's boat on the Adriatic Sea. And just waking up and you're, you know, in a bay and you can see the bottom of the sea. It's like this turquoise blue water.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, I miss that.
Yeah. And you gave your girls that experience.
Yeah.
And then you came back home.
Yes.
To New York.
Yes.
What happened then?
Oh my goodness. I did not want to come home, obviously, for many reasons. And I remember a couple of people keep telling me, you know, you have to honor yourself. You have to stay there. And you tell your husband you're not coming back. If he wanted to talk, he needed to fly over there. I was like, that's not fair, because I looked him in the eyes and I promised that we would be back. And I know that was one of the greatest fears, since he works in the news. He sees a lot of parental abduction stories, and it took a great deal of his trust to allow for that to happen in the first place, for us to go.
To support it, yeah.
I can't betray him like this. There's no way. I will put aside my own needs right now and my own desires and my soul's calling, but I need to come back and we need to continue having that conversation. So what happened after that was this space in between for quite some time when I was on the fence. Do I keep pushing and wanting to bring us all back? Do I break up the family and say, you know, if you don't want to go, you stay here. I'm asking for a divorce and we're going. It was brutal. But I have to be honest that, you know, as much as I wanted to go, I uncovered through a year of intense work on myself that followed after that period of time, that along the way, the guilt was so strong, feeling guilty that I abandoned my family overseas, that was the pull for going back. And I had to come to terms that no, my family now is here. My family is my 2 daughters and my husband. That was a big shift that had to happen. And secondly, you know, being an open book and sharing my journey with my people, my clients, and them coming to me saying, you know, I saw what you're doing. Can you help me do the same? I had this chip on my shoulder that I had to prove something, that I said that we would go and I needed to go to satisfy my ego. And the harder I tried, the more roadblocks kept coming up. And I would say, you know, we're going to be there by June of the following year. Well, that didn't happen. And I would feel terrible. And I would push even harder. And I would push my husband away, and I would push all the opportunities away, because it was just this tunnel vision, you know? So I was like, that's not working. How would it look like if I just released it all and just let it all go?
What happened then?
I love your questions. It was almost as the fog had lifted. My husband and I were able to have difficult conversation without any judgment.
Wow.
Get back to the place of, okay, we are the unit. What do we need to do for ourselves? And as much as I wanted to keep pushing, pursuit of my own happiness, I was like, it'll be unfair to completely disregard what his is just to satisfy mine. Because as I said, the moment we first met, it felt like my soul came home. So that was a little bit deeper knowing for me too, that every single time I tried to tap into this, future vision of where we are, well, I did not necessarily see him as a figure in this future. It was this deeper knowing that we are connected, that this is us, that our story doesn't end in that particular time on those particular terms.
Mm.
It's hard to describe, actually. So that was on the personal side. And then on the business side, I was able to really, since I invested so much time in going in, my business literally was on pause. And as frustrating as it was, like, it's giving me a great space to go back to my heart and see what I really want to bring to the world. And expanding on those strategies that you and I were talking about when we were working together. I was like, there's got to be more heart in it. There's got to be more than that. So it allowed me to really create a container, a global experience for my clients as well, where traveling to Slovenia, to Škofja Loka, my hometown, is just a part of this complete experience for them. And it's this 360 approach that I was not aware how much I was missing it with my clients when I would literally write the business plans for them, hand a piece of paper, and it was just a teeny tiny thing of the whole picture that they actually needed.
Oh, I love it. So, all right, I want you to expand on this a little bit more because I want to understand what it is that you're doing with your clients now. Why are you taking them to Slovenia? And where else are you taking them? And what are you doing in these places?
Whew.
I want all the details.
So obviously, I love to travel.
Mm-hmm.
So Slovenia, Škofja Loka is my hometown where my story begins. And the energy is very grounding in a way. New York has become my second home, and especially New York City. And you walk those streets that, as Alicia Keys sings, the dreams are made of, the streets that dreams are made of. It gives you just this inspiration and it lights you up, and it's like a whole new experience for somebody who has not been in New York before. And then Hawaii, it's where my husband and I took our first big trip, and I absolutely fell in love with Hawaii, especially Honolulu. It's this combination of wilderness and metropolitan feel. And again, it serves differently when you get there. It's just a different place. It's hard to describe it. So I wanted to figure out a way, and I wanted to offer a way for my clients to be able to choose what destination they wanted to go to for in-person retreat, private retreat, because I wanted for them to experience this depth of support, undivided attention, and just the ability to disconnect from everything that they have going on in their office, with their team, with their families, whatever, just focus. But then I got to think, I was like, well, if I'm a business person who already is super busy and I'm invited to go for a retreat, wouldn't that just fuel the guilt of, oh, I'm leaving my family behind yet again? It's like, let's rewrite this script. What about if the family could come along with them, if they choose to, so they can create experiences for their family and focus on the business, have the best of the both worlds.
Wow.
So that became the second layer of a possibility. And then I was like, as a business owner myself, when I attended those retreats, one of the things that I resented the most was then coming back into my reality and having to translate all those visions, all those plans to my team to execute. It's like, what could be the shortcut for that? Oh, yeah. What about the team could come along too, if they wanted to? so they can have a team strategic meeting, whatever they need to work on over those couple of days with my facilitation. And then they can do team building, they can experience different things, they can really get to know each other in a whole new way. And when they get back to their spaces, there's no need to go, nitpicking. Everybody knows what needs to be done. So that was the grounding, the kind of the anchor for everything. And then on top of that, I was like, you know what? There's so much more to building sustainable and what I call multidimensional success on everybody's individual's terms. Not like what somebody else has done, not what your spouse expects, not what your mentors are building that you try to duplicate or whatever, but what it means for you. And so I was like, business is just a tiny part of it. It's super important for a person to have the space and support and guidance and all the tools and the teachings and everything available to dive into who they are as people, to build it in a way that supports the lifestyle that they currently live and the one that they envision for themselves and their families. Because it doesn't make any sense to build, let's say you focus on building a big business, but now all of a sudden you turn around like, I don't get to see my kids. I don't get to travel with my kids anymore. I don't even know how my spouse looks like anymore. And then last but not least, also through my own experience of, there's a lot of these intangibles that go into it, the spiritual aspect of it, that sometimes we still try to kind of make a divider. Okay, this is the business, this is my spirituality. Let's take down the divider and bring it all together. So as I was mapping everything out, I was like, there's no room to fit this into a typical 3-month container, or a course or a group program. So what it came to be was the global experience that I conveniently have the catalog here.
Of course you do. You're in your office. It makes sense.
So it's 6 months to a year to an 18-month flexible, 100% customized private mentorship that includes VIP days, destination retreats, unlimited support in between, really like 360.
That's an amazing offering that you've put together. And I love it. And I want to bring up your human design chart so we can compare, so we can actually look at your design and see how your design is being expressed through this beautiful package that you've put together for people. I think it'll be a lot of fun to look at it from that, so that we even understand even more where this is coming from. So Sara, this is your human design chart. Woohoo. Yay. And your incarnation cross is the writing of cross of the vessel of love. And all the vessel of love, all of these gates are all come out of the G center, which is where you're designed to love. And you've put together the places that you love, and you're sharing that love with your clients as you take them on this experience of a lifetime with you, of not only with their business, but with themselves, and allowing that love to come through in really beautiful and unique ways.
I received that.
So I want you to see that in your chart. And, looking up, you're also a 3-5 profile, which means that throughout your lifetime, you just need to get your hands dirty, and it's going to be a lot of trial and error, and you're going to figure out what works. And you've gone through this process the last couple of years, which was a bit shocking to you to know that you were homesick. Well, you kind of knew it. But to actually feel it so strongly, and your willpower kicked in, because you do have a defined will center, and knowing that it is your sacral center, your G center, and your will center are all connected together. So it's all about your sacral center, since it's directly connected to your G center, it's all about your self direction and love, the things that you do. So if you're doing things that you're here to do things that you love to do, but also you really need to do things that you love to do and share that love.
Yeah.
And then the willpower is bringing things into the material plane through that love. Because it's also, this 25 right here, which is conscious and unconscious for you, is all about the love of spirit.
Wow.
There's the love of spirit, love of the body, love of the self, love of self-expression. There's also a rhythms and patterns here, which is your sun sign personality, which is where you're here to shine.
That is so fascinating.
Yes. And so this gate 15, it's connected. So it's this channel of rhythm, but the gate 15 is you're here to shake things up.
Yeah. Wow.
You're here to be flexible within things, because it's also all about being in rhythm with nature.
Yeah.
And part of that rhythm of nature is being in rhythm with your clients. And so that flexibility that you're bringing to the table is what's your rhythm? How can we match this rhythm and create the rhythm that's right for you?
Wow. This is so fascinating. And for the audience who's listening, I was not aware of any of that at the time when we were talking. And I had my first human design chart done in 2013. And at the time I was like, oh, that's nice. And I put it away. And then every once in a while I would take it out, but with very limited understanding, just the most surface things. So like, oh, that's cool. And I would put it away. But not being aware of the depth that you're describing right now, and comparing of just intuitively following the nudges and allowing to follow those nudges and see them through, now to see the final result, how it compares to that. I mean, what I would advise the audience who has perhaps not, maybe if they haven't worked with you, or save yourself all these years of agony and go through the shortcut. Natalie's your gal for that.
Thank you. But I wanted to just show you, because we didn't pre-plan this, by the way. Sara did not know I was going to do this for her. And before we got on the call, I pulled up her human design and I went through and just, I love allowing the chart to speak to me on what does Sara want to know? What is the most relevant that needs to be shared in this moment? And that's what came up. And then as you're describing your story, it's like, this is so perfect for you.
Yeah.
And so the strategic side of things really comes from that steady rhythm and pattern, but also shaking things up, because you have this gate 5, which is all about set rhythms and patterns. Like, you need a daily routine. You need set times for certain things to happen, but also this other side is going to shake things up.
Yeah.
And so together they work in sync with the circadian rhythms of the earth. So you getting introduced to the moon phases and all of these things is like this bit of opening up of, wait a second, there's something deeper to the strategy that possibly wasn't working.
Yep.
There's something different, and that feels better, even though it's weird. But it actually, like, once you get into it and you're like, oh, this is a nice flow of nature.
Yeah.
For example, one of the things that I use is there's winter, spring, summer, fall. We know that those seasons are going to happen. And depending where you're at in the world, you may get little bits of them or you may get extremes. That's a bit of a different rhythm depending on where you're at. But also we know that in the wintertime, especially in the north, it's going to snow.
Yeah.
But we don't always know what days it's going to snow. We just know it's going to snow. And we don't know how much, unless we read the Farmer's Almanac, and then there's like predictive things. But it's also, in a sense, it's a bit of an unpredictability with it, but we know what's going to happen. And it's part of the rhythm. It's part of, we know that the trees go dormant in the wintertime. We know that the deer come down off, like I'm in Utah, so like the deer come down off the mountain and graze a lot more. Like you see more deer in the wintertime than you do in the summertime. So there's a rhythm that happens with this, and you're translating it to business and these retreats. And if you're going on a year-long retreat with you, well, it's not a year-long retreat, it's a year-long program with these retreats coming in, you intuitively know how the rhythm needs to work within this program for it to be effective.
Yeah.
And then overlaying that with, this is the beginning parts of, we're going to work on this part with your business in this part, because this is the rhythm that makes the most sense. I've got my hands dirty. I know what works and what doesn't work with this. And then that 5 part of your profile, so it's a 3-5 profile. The 5 part is the heretic, which is all about, you've gone through all the trial and error of the 3, and you come back and say, this is what works and this is what doesn't work, and here's why. I know I have the same one too, so it becomes a lot of fun. People actually appreciate when I tell them what works and what doesn't work and why, and all the bad things, bad trials that I've done. Like, that failed miserably. But because it failed miserably, I figured out what did work.
Yeah.
And so you can help people figure that out in their business as well. And you do that through these retreats where you're sharing the places that you love so immensely. And it's one of the things that you said to me before we started recording is that people are now coming to you who have worked with you in the past, but after this transformation that you've gone through, they can really feel your heart.
Yes.
Your heart is in this. And that's so much of how you're designed, is to be there with your heart. When they can feel your heart, you know that they're the right people for you. And they're the right people for you to share that love with. Because you've given it to yourself first and you can express it out. What a beautiful gift to bring not only to yourself, but for the people that are designed to work with you and are meant to work with you and need to work with you on this.
Magic here. My goodness.
So much fun. I'm going to stop the share with that. So I love your story, Sara, of how you were brave enough and had the balls to follow that even though it was really scary for you.
Thank you.
And seeing the entire transformation happen, because right before you went to Slovenia is when you're like, things just were falling apart for you, because all these things were happening. Like, your brain thought it was falling apart, but we know it wasn't falling apart. It was restructuring itself.
Totally.
And so that's when you went off to Slovenia, and we knew that you needed to take a break from working with me. So we were like, I knew that I'd gotten you on the right path with this. Yeah. And so we've kept in touch over the times, because I've seen you share your stories, and we'll pop on and catch up for a little bit to see, like, okay, just want to make sure, like, you're not getting divorced, right? Because that was not a that was an like,
it was like ego, my way or the other way,
like just keep it in check. and really seeing the beauty of the unfolding of the story and how much more resonant and authentic it feels with what you're doing now. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I received that.
Yes.
Thank
you for coming on and sharing your story with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So as we wrap things up, how can people get a hold of you to learn more about your program?
The easiest thing is on website, makeyourlifeyourlegacy.com. And
nice.
I literally live on Facebook, so Sara Oblak Speicher, you'll find me there. And I'm getting reacquainted with LinkedIn for anybody who is on LinkedIn. Again, Sara O. Speicher. I should get my ducks in order and just get them all on the same row.
That could be an invitation.
Yeah, that's the easiest way. And for anybody who would like a actual catalog, you can download the digital version or just send me a message and I'll actually send you the physical one.
Okay. And, so they can download the digital one on makeyourlifeyourlegacy.com?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. And indulge in all those possibilities. And
I know. And you have plenty of pictures to share on your website of these places you're taking people to?
Absolutely.
Because that's kind of the best part, right? Besides actually being there in person is seeing all the gorgeous pictures.
You know, it was so interesting when I was creating all of those things. I was like, I know people do retreats, and that was my initial kind of nudge. I was like, but if I put myself in those shoes, it's miserable when you're sitting in a retreat and you're so inspired and everything is amazing. And then the last day you're presented with a form and it's like, oh, if you want this experience to continue, you need to sign up for whatever ongoing program, or you go back to the old world and, you know, the old energy, the old expectations. So I was like, no, you know, I want to do something different, and I want this to be a part of this ongoing journey. So there's no pressure of, oh shoot, can I really dream this big? Because if I don't extend at the end of the, you know, or do a place, it's a lot of, I think a lot of the inner conversation that we're having and holding ourselves back because we don't know what the next steps would be, if we'll be rising up to the challenge of accepting those. So one of the reasons why this is an extended period of time is like, not everything happens in 3 months. Not everything happens in those 90 days or 8 weeks or whatever typical programs are offered for.
Yep.
And it took me a lot of guts to brutally honestly saying that to break from that mold just because it's a standard in our industry. But not everything happens. And that's where I also got to piggyback on the fact that, it took me 15 years of playing basketball to get to where I was. It didn't happen in one practice.
Right.
It took a couple of years plus a couple of months in Slovenia to get to that point. It didn't happen in 3 months. So I guess where I'm going with this is for anybody who might be wondering, like, will I ever get there? How can I get there? Will I get there in the time frame that I have in mind? What do I need to do? I think the only underlying thing is, who can I allow myself to become to make it happen? And then detaching from any timely expectations, because time is just an illusion, you know. And if we're putting a pressure on ourselves of, oh no, this needs to happen by June, this needs to we're just closing off all those streams of inspiration and possibilities to even reach us in the first place.
That was beautiful. Thank you. So. Yeah. I'm so proud of you for breaking down the barriers and throwing some of the stuff out the window that was frustrating you and you knew wasn't working, and changing it for your clients.
Yeah. And it is scary, you know.
It is.
Throughout the conventional way of living and education, we're taught of, oh, you go to school, you decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're 14.
Yeah.
And then entrepreneurship is nothing like it. But
you know, it's really funny. Just as a little side note, I had somebody mention to me, I think it may have been even in my 20s or 30s, of the realization of, would you ever let an 18-year-old, or maybe in your world 14, would you ever let a 14-year-old make the decision on what you want to be for the rest of your life?
No.
No. And I was like, I forgive myself for not knowing what I wanted to do in my life.
Yeah.
At the time.
I had this realization the other day. I was talking to somebody who retired herself at 55 because her husband was so much older that he retired from his job, and she's like, okay, I'm done. She put a 15-year plan in place to make it happen within the time frame. And I was sitting there, I was like, I have about 20 years now to get there. I have no idea what I'm going to do in 5 years, much less in 20 years. So I'm not going to try to force myself to create a plan. But going back to what you just shared, this yay or nay, and starting to trust those more and more and more. It's freaking my husband out. My mom still comes on the phone. She's like, I'm still not quite sure what you do. Don't worry about it. You don't need to know. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's just the risk we need to be willing to take, that not everything is going to be known, that you're just taking one step at a time. And you just have to be okay with it.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your gorgeous story of bravery and beginning your mastery of the direction that you are designed for.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right. So for those of you who are listening to this, if you're listening to this on the podcast platform, the video for this is over in YouTube, and there will be a link in the show notes so you can come in and watch it. And I'll also have a link to, I'll have the image of Sara's human design chart over on the blog at nataliemurraycollins.com. You'll be able to find that there. So we'll have all the things ready for you so you can dive into this and really see what we're talking about. I don't want, if you're just listening to the audio, I don't want you to feel left out because I did record the video of this. So, all right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sara, for popping in and sharing your gorgeous story. And again, for anybody who wants to contact you, your website is makeyourlifeyourlegacy.com. All right. And until the next episode, bye for now.